Yo, what's up guys, I'm Adam, welcome to my channel. Today we have a very nice topic, very unique and nobody did it before. Basically what we're about to do is we are gonna do a tier list, right? Before that, let me explain you that personally I'm not like the biggest fan of tier lists, because I find them like not very specific, too widespread, and you can't really say like exactly in this situation this unit is the best. It's at the end it's like a team play game, right? You have to basically use multiple units and form a team for a specific encounter, so it's very hard to say what's like the best, you know. So to basically specify this tier list a bit further, what I'm about to do is I will gonna talk only about Doki Doki and on auto, right? We are gonna talk about the AI on the best AI team, because at the end nobody actually wants to play this game. No, I'm kidding. But we would like to basically do something more important with our time, so let the Doki Doki team just run in the background and run some PvP, I don't know. Yeah, so let me explain you how we're gonna start. So basically, as you can see here, this is the tier list I made with the tier maker and I already prepared it for you guys. We have like S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and this is like a tier that mostly of them are basically red units, right? We don't want to run red units in Inferno because the enemies have a very huge damage buff against them, so that it's pretty likely that they will die. So we don't include any of them, and it's also the no idea tier list because some of those units I didn't try in Doki Doki. Maybe it's because like they are single target DPS, so it's basically about their kit. I for myself decided that they are probably not gonna be a very strong component in the team or a very strong unit, so I didn't even try them. Maybe they could work out, I don't know, but I didn't bother. And yeah, so with that out of the way, I would say let's start. By the way, I will watch on my second monitor, my side monitor, because I have a spreadsheet that I basically did myself with all the tier lists and all the characters and the stats and so on. So I will basically look at them and just copy everything that I wrote down. So don't be confused about me like watching all this time on the left side of my screen. And yeah, so how are we gonna start? Basically, let's start with healers. And first and foremost, I don't think like we have very bad healers, that they are C tier or anything like that. But I would say like the B tier healers are Dorothy, and you can say that she's a healer, I don't know, but it's Helen's. So let me explain. The problem with Dorothy is, in my opinion, Dorothy's healing throughput is insanely strong. So she is an attack-based healer, and her healing throughput is very strong. In my opinion, it's actually the strongest in the game. I don't think there is any healer, no Ling Lu or Sanya or whatever, who comes close to the throughput of an S3 skilled up Dorothy. Like, I played her myself, I basically skilled her up on S3 full, and Dorothy on attack bonus and S3 max, her healing throughput is basically ridiculous. I don't think any of the other healers come close. But the main issue or the main problem is why she's not very good in Doki Doki. It's mainly about the second wave, I would say. When they get a turn, it's pretty likely for Dorothy to die or for anybody in your team to die. Because the main issue is that most of the time that when the enemies attack a unit or basically get this turn of a lot of attacks back to back, because you have your Kazuyo S3 on cooldown, you have your Kraken S3 on cooldown, so they are not CC'd, no attack down, no, basically nothing on them, and they will pretty likely like get a turn, and when they back to back focus like one unit, this unit will die before Dorothy even gets the chance to heal the unit. And that's basically the main issue about Dorothy. She's just way too slow and way too squishy, because she's an attack based healer, and that's why she is in my opinion so she's not very optimal, right? And that's about her. So next is Selins. Why I would say Selins is pretty decent is basically she is a shield type utility unit. She's not actually a healer, but the fact that she provides shields is very good, because like I said, when the enemies get a turn, it's pretty likely for them to actually one-shot a unit out of your team, and shields are basically like more HP, right? So if a unit has like 10 HP base but gets a 5k shield, it's basically a 15k HP unit, right? So the chance for it to survive is very high with shields, or higher than basically having a healer who actually needs to get a turn and then heal up, right? So that's why I put Selins in B. So in my opinion, she's like high, but nothing really crazy, nothing really insanely good about her. Now that's already about the B tier. Let's talk about the A tier healers. A tier healers, in my opinion, we have Sanya and we have Ling Lo. So let's first talk about Sanya. Sanya, big difference to Dorothy. Her healing throughput not as high. However, she's an HP scaling healer, so she's very tanky. Probably like the last unit to die. She has a revive and she has a purify or dispel. And sometimes when the enemies get a turn, they will like either death down, so death break your team, or they maybe even stun one of your units. So Sanya is very good into that. And when you're like extremely unlucky and somebody out of your team dies, Sanya will basically like revive him, right? So Sanya at that point very good. However, needs like, I would say, a specific team in mind, right? So for example, if you pair her up with Tiamat, she's of course like even better, right? Because of the higher max HP. Tiamat scales with max HP, so that's like a very good point for her, and the reason why she's in the A tier. Then about Ling Lo. Ling Lo, I saw a lot of people or a lot of different tier lists that put like blindly Ling Lo in every fucking encounter on S tier. I don't fucking know why. I don't see basically the reason, because Ling Lo is basically like Sanya, right? But she has this ability to, every time when she heals, she cleanses, which is very good. But as the same problem as Dorothy had, and Sanya basically also has this problem, but she counters it with the revive. When Ling Lo doesn't get a turn, one of your units may die, right? That's why she's like very good in through her healing throughput and her cleanses and all, like the defense down when you cleanse it instantly, very good. But I don't see a reason why she would be ever S tier, especially not in Doki Doki. I don't see a reason for that. It's not like she has an elemental advantage. She's like water, and Doki Doki enemies are also water. So I don't see a reason why she should be S tier. She doesn't do anything like crazy good for Doki Doki. And when I remember correctly, when I looked at the leaderboard of Inferno the last time, I didn't see any Ling Lo, I think, because Ling Lo is, like I said, she's very good, but she's nothing insanely crazy, I would say, in Doki Doki. So that's basically about Linglo. She's on the same level as Sanya, but in my opinion, when you pair up Sanya like with Tiamat, Sanya is even better than Linglo. So let's say the left side are the units that are better. They're in their same tier basically, right? So they are healers. So Dorothy is probably like worse than Selens because shields are more valuable than healer, and Sanya is because of her revive better than Linglo, I would say. That's already about A tier, and now we come, in my opinion, the best healer in Doki Doki, and there's no doubt about that. I don't think any of these healers come even close, and that's Valerian. Valerian is S tier healer in Doki Doki. The thing about Valerian, and that's kind of broken, at least in my opinion. So first, she provides shields, right? The thing is about this shield, not like Selens. Selens basically shields when she gets a turn. Valerian, however, shields every time somebody out of your team gets a turn. So when basically Real Mocha gets a turn and Valerian has her S3 up, so she's in Hazy Dream or something like that, Real Mocha instantly gets a shield. That's insanely strong. And people don't understand why exactly it's so overpowered, at least in my opinion. Because if you imagine, and that's basically what I did in Doki Doki, basically what you do is go Valerian full HP, like full HP, and make her as slow as possible. And you need her S3 fully maxed, because if you have her S3 maxed, she will instantly start the turn in her Hazy Dream. So she doesn't even need a turn to provide her full value. And if Valerian is extremely slow and your team in comparison is extremely fast, the shields she provides have like almost a 100% uptime. Because the faster the units are in your team, the more shields they get, because it's basically about them getting the turn and not Valerian. And on the counterpart, if Valerian is extremely slow, her Hazy Dream basically never runs out, right? So my Valerian was so slow in Hell 4, for example, that her Hazy Dream basically almost never ran out, like almost never. The only time that when Valerian broke her Hazy Sleep was when one of my units basically almost died. And that's one other thing about Valerian, why she's so crazy strong in Doki Doki. When somebody out of your team is about to die, Valerian will wake up and prevent it, which is insane. That's very strong in Doki Doki, especially for auto. Because sometimes you have those insanely unlucky runs and you can't do shit about this. The fact that she gives you like a pseudo revive or basically cheat death, I would say, is insanely valuable. When somebody is about to die, she will wake up and prevent it. And then even though her S3 is on cooldown, her S2 is also insanely strong. Because what Valerian will do on auto is when she uses S2, she will basically give the unit with the lowest HP an invincibility buff plus an hot, right? And heal over time effect on your team. And that's insane. That's crazy broken. And on top of that, and most of the time it doesn't come up, but sometimes in those extremely unlucky runs it does, Valerian has a sleep on her S1. So she basically can deal with the Doki mechanic, right? And that's insanely broken. In my opinion, Valerian by far, not even in comparison, is the best healer for Doki Doki. I can't comprehend why people are saying somebody like Linglo is S tier. Linglo, in my opinion, is the biggest joke in comparison to Valerian. Everybody out of these 4 healers is a joke compared to Valerian in Doki Doki. Valerian, in my opinion, completely insane, busted, overpowered. That's crazy. However, you have to keep in mind, she needs her S3. She basically needs to start with her S3 up, right? She needs to instantly begin her Hazy Dream, so you can build her as slow as possible, right? And like I said, Valerian with S3 fully maxed, by far the best healer, in my opinion. Let's talk about the supports, right? Like I said, keep in mind, guys, we are talking about AI. We are talking about auto run, right? So, C tier, only one support in my opinion, and that's Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi has, in my opinion, a big AI problem with her S3. Because what Tsukuyomi most of the time does in an AI, she basically buffs the unit with the highest attack. And that's extremely bad. Because Doki Doki has a clear turn order for your team. So pushing anybody else, like the fucking DPS for whatever reason, in front doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So Tsukuyomi on auto, in my opinion, kinda trash. So she's meh. You have better options. You can try to do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Next pick is Doki Doki, right? Doki Doki is in herself a very strong unit because her skills are insanely high value. But the main issue with Doki Doki, in my opinion, is that her skill cooldown is way too high. And her S1 almost basically does nothing in Doki Doki. Nothing that is of value, at least in my opinion. So she has way too much value up front, which is, for example, extremely good in PvP because you want to get the upper hand as soon as possible. But that's not what you want in Doki Doki. Because most of the time what you will do in Doki Doki is rid of the buff of Doki Doki, then buff your DPS, maybe a death down, and then your DPS goes and one-shots the wave, right? That's basically the best you can do. And those turns are pretty quick, right? So you need like 20 seconds, 30 seconds to kill the first wave if you do it right. And when Doki Doki already uses her S3 and S2 on this wave, it's kind of sus because she basically doesn't do shit on the second wave. And that's pretty bad, at least in my opinion. On AI, I don't see Doki Doki being very good, at least in comparison to the upcoming supports. So let's go for the A tier and the upcoming supports I was talking about. And that's, in my opinion, where is she? Number 41 and Lily. So now let's talk about number 41. Number 41 is basically Chiaki the Echo, but on budget. Because the thing is, Chiaki the Echo needs investment. She needs investment on her S3 to get it down to 3 turn cooldown. And investing into an R unit is way easier than an SR unit, especially when you have multiple SR units that you have to build, like Valerian S3 Max, Grey maybe, Kazuyo S3 Max, and so on. And so number 41 is actually a very good choice to maybe main use or even bridge until you decide to invest into your Chiaki. So she's insanely strong on auto and has like S2 here, which also comes sometimes up very decent, right? She's extremely straightforward. She will just push your whole team by 35%, I think, on 3 turn cooldown and buff attack, which is very good, right? So that's about her. Now about Lily, and most of the people maybe don't agree, but let me explain. So Lily, the thing about Lily And what I don't really like about her is, for example, let me say it first. In my opinion, Real Mocha best DPS. Real Mocha best DPS for Doki Doki, but she doesn't really work very well with Lily. So Real Mocha and Lily together are not very good on auto, in my opinion, because the thing is, every time when Lily basic attacks, you will push Real Mocha, and Real Mocha has a fixed position in her turn order to have the highest value, right? So basically pushing her in front of other units is not very good. And the next thing is her S3. Her S3 basically resets the enemy's cooldown, which she is binded to, right? And the thing is, Real Mocha doesn't need that. Real Mocha will reset her S3 on her own. So most of the time there's no really good value behind that. And that's why, in my opinion, Lily is extremely strong on manual play, because you can decide what to do in which order and adjust to the higher turn meter push on your DPS, right? So you can like maybe do not use your S3 and maybe S1 with Real Mocha, right? Because you know, like after Real Mocha goes Kazuyo and Sleep and Grey and Deathbreak, and you know, so in manual play, Lily is insanely strong, but on AI, in my opinion, she's not very good. Like pushing the DPS in front is not necessarily something that you want to do, right, in Doki Doki, because like I said, you have like a fixed turn order and you want to stick to that. Now let's talk about S tier. And S tier, clearly in my opinion, Chiaki the Echo and Freya. And I would even say like Chiaki the Echo in front of Freya. Why is that? So basically Chiaki the Echo best support, at least in my opinion, for Doki Doki, because her S3 has 3 turn cooldown to basically number 41, but better because of Ave Maria. And Ave Maria of Chiaki the Echo basically works like when a unit already has an attack buff, which is easily achievable with Chiaki the Echo, because when she gets a turn, she will buff like 2 units. When you max it up, she will buff 3 units. And when a unit already has an attack buff and you are trying to attack buff them again through S3, they will get a buff. That's Ave Maria. And Ave Maria will basically, every time the unit gets a turn, push the turn meter of everybody else in the team by 5%. And that's for everybody who has Ave Maria, right? So everybody who has Ave Maria will do this. And that's insane if you think about it on a long run. Because on the long run, you get a shit ton of turns. And most of the encounters, I would say, in Etheria Restart, the more turns you get, the more damage you can do at the end, right? Makes sense. And especially in Doki Doki, when you want to get rid of the buff of the Doki Doki mechanic, your CC unit, your debuffer, needs to get her S3, for example Kazuyo. Kazuyo needs to get her S3 back, because she will S3 on turn 1, and Grey probably already Deathbreak before that. Real Mocha will one-shot the wave, so her S3 is already on cooldown. And to basically counter this part of not having the CC ability ready, you are trying to get as many turns as possible, so your Kazuyo will actually get her S3 back up. Chiaki the Echo is basically the best turn pusher in the game, I would say. On top of that, which also comes very clutch sometimes, is her S1. So Chiaki the Echo will purify a debuff when she S1, which is also very good. Now, in comparison to Freya, and that's like debatable, but in my opinion, Freya is very good into enemies that you are preventing to get a turn when you pair her up with somebody like Marvel, right? Freya is insanely good with units like Marvel, and her turn push mechanic for their own team on the other hand is not very good. You don't really feel a lot from it, especially when you compare it to Chiaki the Echo. The thing about Freya in S rank is not only about her turn push mechanic, which basically Chiaki the Echo does, and her turn manipulation in general. Freya's mechanic Nightmare, which gives like 12% more damage, is insanely strong. You have sometimes this unlucky run, like I said, we are talking about AI. You have sometimes this unlucky run where your Mocha goes after daybreak, deathbreak, sleep, and everything, and the enemies survive with 1k HP. This 1k HP survive on the first wave can make this run extremely sus. It can make, doesn't mean it will, but it can. And it will, of course, make your run slower, right? Makes sense. And this Nightmare damage buff that you get is insanely valuable to get this execute on Mocha S3 to kill the target, and is in general very good with DPS that AoE, like Messiah for example. When you think about AI, what Freya does in AI is S3, and Mocha will be the last unit in the turn, and she will clear the wave. So Freya will be the unit to start the second wave. And what Freya does is basically S2. And the S2 is a defense up and a pseudo prevention of debuffs, I would say, which also is very good. Because like I said, Kazuyo S3 is on cooldown. The enemies will get a turn. You can't do shit about that. They will get a turn. So you have to survive this. And if you pair it up with the Valerian shields and the defense up, and the prevention to debuffs, the S2 of Freya is actually very good. So in my opinion, Chiaki the Echo and Freya both deserve the S tier for Doki Doki. I for myself used Chiaki the Echo in Inferno DokiDoki. A lot of people used Freya, right? Because Freya is just better into faster runs, like basically more damage and so on, to get the execute. Right, but if you have a stable team where your Mocha does the most damage or enough damage, Chiaki the Echo, in my opinion, the better unit. Like, not a lot better, but better. That's why I have her on the left side in comparison to Freya on the right side. I'm already looking at the screen and we are in half an hour in, so I kind of have to speed it up. So let's kind of blast through it, or we will sit here until tomorrow. About Sub-DPS / debuffer. In my opinion, Born, not really main DPS. In my opinion, he doesn't get the advantage, the elemental advantage. So he's basically missing already damage because of that. And outside of his S3, he doesn't do shit, at least in my opinion. So he's kind of meh. You have better options. Yang is just worse Gray, in my opinion. So just use Gray. You already get him for free. Don't use Yang. Doesn't make sense. Next one is Obel. It's debatable, in my opinion. The dots is not why you bring him, because dots is not very good in this type of encounter, I would say. And I will explain you why when we come to Dark Sanya. But you basically bring him because of his stun, right? So you get rid of the Doki Doki mechanic, and that's good enough. That's about C tier. B tier is, where is he? Rahu. Rahu, quite decent, right? Quite decent. Does a lot of follow-up or assist or whatever that is. Basically scales the longer the fight goes, and gives defense up for your team. So it makes your team pretty tanky. Very good unit, I would say, when it comes to longer runs, sustained runs. You will have like 4-minute clear, probably like 3.5-minute clear with him. But quite a decent sub DPS, I would say. Makes your team like quite tanky, so he is alright, I would say, right? Not optimal, but he's alright. Now let's come to A tier. A tier, clear Kraken. Kraken is an A tier because in my opinion he's just worse than Kazuyo, and I wouldn't personally run Kazuyo and Kraken in the same team because it doesn't very, it's not very working well in auto, I would say, because I see the vision, right? I can see that you basically drop your healer, run Kazuyo and Kraken, let your Kazuyo go first, no, or maybe get your Kraken go first. Let's say Kraken goes first. You can just Grey follow up and crit up and defense down. Your Remoka one-shots the wave, for example, right? Echo, of course, goes first. We don't forget, or Freya. And then when the wave dives after Remoka, then you speed tuned your Kazuyo to go next. Kazuyo will instantly sleep. Your Remoka has her S3 up instantly, right? Because she killed the whole wave. And when she gets the turn, the next wave basically almost dies, or maybe dies already, right? So I can see the vision, but I personally wouldn't do that, especially in early mid game where it's kinda sus, I would say, to run an auto Inferno team or auto Hell 4 team without a sustainer, because you sometimes have those unlucky runs. If everything works perfect, like every CC hits and so on, of course it can work, but that's not what we are trying to achieve in auto. We want a very good, very fast auto team with the highest success chance, right? So Kraken, in my opinion, just a worse Kazuyo. I will explain later why, but that's why he's an A tier. Next, we have RC77. Needs team. I have to mention this, right? In A, sometimes basically you have like team synergies, why some units are better and so on, like Sanya with Tiamat. This is basically about RC77. RC77 basically only, in my opinion, works really good with Remoka, because he has a single target stun and an AoE defense down, and I think attack down, which is very good, because Remoka, I will explain later why she's so broken, but Remoka only needs like one unit to die, right? So he is very good with Remoka, not very good with other DPS, I would say. You have like insane units in comparison that are just better, and we have a lot of them in S tier. So he is very good with Remoka, but I personally wouldn't go him over somebody like Kazuyo, for example. And then we have Tiamat. Tiamat, in my opinion, is not a main DPS. She's more like a support sub-DPS kind of thing, because she provides shields, she makes your team tanky, and she does decent damage on her S1. So when you have Tiamat, most of the time you ran Sanya alongside her. So she is very good, but because she's like a blue unit, she misses a lot of damage already, and running her as a main DPS is not very good, because your clear time will be extremely slow. We are talking about like 3.5 minutes, like I said about Rahu, and that's already about 80 and all the debuffer sub DPS. Now let's talk about S tier, and we have a lot of them. So S tier sub DPS / debuffer. We have Grey. Grey, insane unit for Doki Doki. He is green, he does a shit ton of damage. He basically buffs crit rate, which are just base stats, so you can go more attack and more crit damage on your main DPS, right? It's insane. Grey also 100% defense down when he crits, which he all the time does, right? And I think his S1 was a pushback. So Grey, extremely good unit, having an AoE 2-turn defense down on a 3-turn cooldown ability is insanely strong. So Grey, very good sub DPS for Doki Doki. Next we have Claws. Claws basically is like Grey, right? But with the exception that she doesn't provide crit rate, so you have to go more into crit rate. However, she basically makes the run safer than Grey, right? Because she also provides this defense down, however, also provides hacking. And hacking is a stupid mechanic. Hacking is insanely strong. If you get the 3 stacks off of her debuff mechanic, right? Basically, the run is over. The enemies won't do shit, like almost. They will receive a lot more damage, they will do less damage and are way slower, right? So basically the same niche, Grey or Claws. I could see using both, right? But I personally wouldn't yet. But if you have Claws, you run basically her over Grey, because Claws makes everything like more safe, right? Because of hacking and so on. So on AI, very good mechanic, and that's why she is an S tier. Next, the queen about dealing with the mechanic, in my opinion, is Kazuyo. Kazuyo is broken as shit in Doki Doki. I don't care what anybody says about cracking over Kazuyo or whatever. Kazuyo is the queen on auto run Doki Doki. So now let me explain. The thing about Kazuyo is, if the enemies for whatever reason resist her sleep, right? The thing is, her S3 still gives attack down on the enemies, which is insanely strong, right? It gives the opportunity to survive for your team, and that's what you want. You want the success chance, the highest success rate for your team on auto, which is very good. Next thing, her S1 is also asleep, which is also very good, because sometimes you have these moments where Kazuyo uses S3 on first wave, the wave dies, and then on the second wave Kazuyo uses S1, sleeps, and then your Remoka goes and also one-shots this unit, because you already dealt with the mechanic of Doki Doki. So Kazuyo insanely strong. And on top of that, you have to keep in mind that we have the time weave set, and we have specific shells that are insanely strong alongside time weave. And these are Blizzard and Halloween. And what Blizzard and Halloween basically do is they have a chance, which is higher on Halloween, to reduce the cooldown of one ability, which is on cooldown by 1 turn, right? And the thing is, why it's so good on Kazuyo, one ability is on cooldown, and that's her S3. So her S3 will always get this cooldown reduce from Blizzard and Halloween, which is an insane synergy. And on top of that, you also have time weave, right? So when you're lucky as time weave and Halloween slash Blizzard can proc at the same time. She can already have only a 1 turn cooldown on her S3. Kazuyo on time weave and Blizzard slash Halloween. Halloween is of course better, because Halloween actually has the time weave matrix set on her. Blizzard doesn't. So you are losing basically matrix points, symbols, whatever. And however, like I said, Kazuyo insane, the best unit to deal with the Doki Doki mechanic. She is insane. That's at least my opinion. Next, the second best in my opinion is Lilith. Lilith puts a bomb on everybody on the enemy team. After 2 turns, they blow up and stun the target. If you skill her S3, the stun chance of her bomb is 100%. So the enemies will always lose their Doki Doki buff after 2 turns, like 100% chance. So Lilith, very good, especially if you pair her up with the Remoka, because what Lilith does on AI is she will S3, and then she will get a turn and she will S2 instantly, and S2 blows up and turn pushes the target that she chose basically. And because of that, if you pair her up with Remoka, Remoka will always have a target which has no Doki Doki buff on them, right? The damage reduction. So Lilith alongside Remoka, insanely strong together, right? Next, or the last unit is where is he? Marvel. Marvel is OP as shit. I have no idea what they will do about him in the upcoming patch notes, because Marvel is pure insanity. Marvel is crazy, insane, broken, and every fucking encounter he touches, he makes life easier. Marvel is crazy broken. By the way, you should reroll for his ass. you need a Marvel. Marvel is crazy broken. At least for now. We don't know what they will do about him in the patch notes, but he's insanely broken. That's about Marvel. Let's come to DPS. Let's blast it through. C tier, Dark Sanya. In my opinion, Dot, not very good in Doki Doki. At least, like I said, in my opinion, especially for AI. Sanya's AI is very good. Sanya's AI, how it works is basically she will S3 the moment she knows the enemy will die. So when the enemy has enough dots on them, Sanya will S3 and she will basically kill them. And the main issue in Doki Doki is you don't have a boss, but you have waves, and you have multiple, like you have 2 waves. So you already need to basically max dot 2 waves, which takes a lot of time, first. And second, she is very team dependent. She on her own won't provide enough dots to actually kill the wave fast enough. So she needs somebody like Odel, and she needs somebody like Fangus. And Fangus is a red unit. So whenever the enemies get a turn for whatever unlucky reason in your AI, they will fuck this guy up crazy. And when he dead, you are missing a shit ton of dots. So I personally wouldn't like try running a dot team in Doki Doki, personally. You can try. I did. I wouldn't. You have better options, right? So she's meh. Next is Rin. Rin is a blue unit, so she basically misses a lot of damage. Same goes to Born, right? Same problem here. And she is like in speed scaling DPS, so she needs a lot of speed, which is not very in favor unless you have crazy gear, because then your whole team needs to be insanely fast and Rin to be the last, which is not very easy achievable, right? So like I said, I wouldn't bother with Rin. That's about her. Then we have Xiara. Xiara, same problem, blue unit, missing already damage because of that, and she's in a ramping up unit, right? So she becomes better over turns because her S3 goes down on cooldown, but she is, because of that, because she has a defense down and then 1 turn cooldown, I think, when she's fully maxed on her S3. She is very good when she is fully maxed, but like I said, she is not very optimal in Doki Doki because she's blue and missing damage because of that, and she needs to ramp up, which you actually don't want. You want a DPS that goes ham instantly because of the way like you set up your team to like buff your team, then defense down, and then get rid of the buff of Doki Doki from the enemies, and then you want a crazy nuke. So Xiara is not very, very optimal in that because she ramps up, which is not, like I said, very good. Next is, in my opinion, Heinrich. Heinrich is actually insanely broken in something like Terramaton. He is the king of Aurora, right, because of his D-spell mechanic. But the issue is, even though he provides a lot of debuffs and gives you the chance to D-spell, the thing is, you don't need it at all. You don't need anything from his kit, specifically in Doki Doki. Like, nothing. He's not very optimal. He's not very optimal. You have better DPS that do more damage up front, do it faster than him. Even though he debuffs a lot and D-spell a lot, he actually doesn't need to do it. It has no value in Doki Doki. So he's alright, you can use him, but he's not very optimal. Then we go to A tier. In my opinion, we have Rosa, we have Messiah, probably Messiah over Rosa, I would say. I don't know, something like that. Messiah is very good, very strong. If you manage to kill the whole wave with 1 S3 on him, is very good. But he doesn't have enough damage on his on the second wave until he gets his S3 back, right? So when you pair him up with something like Lily, like Needs team, right? He is very good, like resetting his S3 instantly and so on. Very good interaction with both of them. But like I said, Lily is not very good in Doki Doki because of the turn manipulation and pushing your DPS in front of your debuffer who gets rid of the mechanic is also not very good. So Lily and Messiah, good combination in general, but not that good in Doki Doki. Like I said, Messiah insanely good, very good DPS, does a shit ton of damage, also invincibility for himself, so he basically won't die whatsoever. But it is not the best. He's very good, but the moment like one of the enemies basically gets doesn't get his buff from Doki Doki removed, like the damage reduction, you will be stuck on that wave until you remove it, right? Or until you deal with the unit that survived. So if you have like 4 enemies or 5 enemies in Doki Doki, if you do not get rid of the buff from everybody, he loses value, right? Because he probably doesn't kill the whole wave. So that's why he is only in A tier. Same goes for Rosa. Rosa, insane DPS throughput over time. I think Rosa is probably the strongest DPS when it comes down to actual damage per second, because of all the follow-ups that she does. So you need to pair her up with Sub-DPS that actually crits and give your team in general like crit stats. But because she's a blue unit, like I said, same issue with Xeala and so on, she actually misses damage, even though she seems like she doesn't miss it if you watch some of the runs of Rosa in Doki Doki, but she misses 15%, and missing 15% damage is actually a lot, right? So that's about both of them. And now we come to the end with the best DPS in Doki Doki, and I don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks or says or does in his own tier list. I don't give a shit. I ran Doki Doki in the beta for 24/7. I basically built a tent in Doki Doki. I was living there, right? I was making food in the kitchen there. I was living in Doki Doki. I had 90 hours of game time in the beta. Most of the time sitting in fucking Doki Doki. And real Mocha is designed to deal with Doki Doki. 100%. She is by far the best DPS. That's why we don't have anybody else in the S tier except real Mocha, because nobody of these other DPS here comes even close to real Mocha and what she does in AI. Real Mocha is busted as fuck. She is crazy. Let me actually explain why real Mocha, the queen of Doki Doki, is so insane. So the thing is, on how real Mocha works, let me actually pull up Prydwen so you can read it along. Okay, now we have real Mocha, right? This is real Mocha on the Prydwen page, and let's see on basically how she works and how her kit functions. So the thing is, let's look out for the most important ability from real Mocha's kit, and that's her candy attack, her S3. Basically, on my mark candy attack, real Mocha first deals 3 hits of 180% damage to a single enemy. 180% times 3 is 540% multiplier, which is ridiculous. That's insanely high. And I pray to God that they don't nerf real Mocha in the upcoming patch notes, because this is illegal. 540% scaling on a single target ability is insane. Anyways, let's move next. With the first hit having a 75% chance to inflict a 1 stun on the enemy. So if for whatever reason you miss the chance to remove the buff through Kazuyo, the Doki Doki buff, right? Through Kazuyo, and the enemy only has defense down, real Mocha on her own, on her strongest nuke, provides you the chance to get rid of it by herself. That's already insane. Such a strong nuke with the chance to stun and get rid of it is, and especially on AI, right, where you're running a lot of Doki Doki, where you have a lot of Doki Doki runs in the background, this sometimes comes up and will give you the chance to clear the run, basically, right? So sometimes this actually comes up. Now, the important part. After attacking, she did splash damage to all enemies equal to 33% of the total damage she dealt. Not a lot. However, if the first 3 hits kill the target, the splash damage ratio will be increased to 100%. This is, I would assume, is the strongest AoE nuke in the game, because you have a 540% multiplier on a single target enemy. But if the enemy dies, she will basically splash damage on everybody with all the damage that you dealt on the single target enemy. And that's basically 540% AoE, which is busted. That's insane. However, we are not done yet. And now comes actually the reason that somebody who designed Mocha was cooking in the kitchen. Somebody was cooking crazy because he was like, I'm done with Doki Doki, I'm sucking ass, I have to create a character. That's probably what the designer thought, designing her kid when he played his own game. Splash damage. Splash damage unaffected by damage boost or damage reduction and cannot deal crit hits. This is insanely busted, overpowered, crazy. Bro, I'm missing words to describe it. Because what this does is basically, even if for whatever reason Kazuyo misses sleep on 4 units out of 5 and only gets like 1 sleep on 1 target, so basically moves the damage reduction only on 1 unit. If Mocha attacks this unit and manages to kill it, she will do 540% damage, AoE as splash damage, and the splash damage ignores the damage reduction. So even if in Inferno the enemies have 90% damage reduction, if Mocha manages to kill one of them with this ability, she will hit like a truck on everybody else, even though they have the damage reduction effect. I had multiple times where my Mocha killed a unit in Doki Doki, and some of the other units had like the damage reduction buff up, but because she killed the unit, she hit like 50 to 60k AoE on them and one-shotted their areas, even though they had the damage reduction. So that's the thing about this ability. And now you're like, yeah, 3-turn cooldown is pretty good, but what about second wave and so on, right? She doesn't do shit in second wave. Bro, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Somebody who was designing this unit was cooking. Somebody was cooking. S1, Sweetheart, reduces all her animal skill cooldown by 1 turn after each kill. In Doki Doki, first wave, you have 4 enemies. If Mocha kills with her S3 1 unit in this wave and basically one-shots the whole wave, on the second wave, when she gets her turn, she has S3 back up again. No idea who the fuck designed this character, but somebody was mad at Doki Doki. Somebody was crazy mad. This character is designed to beat Doki Doki. And like I said, I don't care about anybody else. I don't care about any other tier list. Like fucking putting Messiah or Rosa beside Mocha in fucking Doki Doki. no fucking way. No fucking way. Real Mocha is crazy, insanely busted. She is designed for Doki Doki. And that's why she is the only DPS who deserves to be in this tier. That's my opinion. And I didn't even talk about the sets, the DPS sets and the shells, right? That are insanely strong on fucking Real Mocha. Kenai on Real Mocha is also busted as fuck. Kenai, at least to me, seems like somebody designed it for Real Mocha. Kenai, the first 3 instances of damage dealt by enemies during the turn increased by 25, 15 and 5% respectively. The strongest nuke in the game is Real Mocha's S3 and it does 3 instances of damage. So somebody was cooking here, 100%. Next, best shell by far, not even comparison, on Real Mocha is Revelation. I think that's a new shell actually. Like I said, kinda sus, right? Real Mocha a new unit and Revelation a new shell alongside her? Kinda sus. What does Revelation? Let me pull it up. Revelation. Let's read. Before the owner takes action, enables each crit hit dealt by the owner's enemies in this turn to deal additional real damage equal to 12% of the target's max HP. This basically capped at 180% of self-attack. That's broken, my guy. That's broken. Because Real Mocha does her S3 3 times. So she procs this max health true damage 3 times. She does 36% max HP. I mean, it is capped at 180% of self-attack. So you basically have to give her good attack, right? To improve this effect. But that's insane. That's insane. So, like I said, I don't care what anybody does in his own tier list. Putting any DPS beside Real Mocha and SC on Doki Doki is a troll. At least in my opinion. Real Mocha is by far the best DPS for Doki Doki, and she is the queen of DPS in Doki Doki. But that's just my opinion. After I talk for probably like 1 hour about this whole tier list, I think we come to an end here. I hope you guys enjoyed. I played like 90 hours in this beta. I was farming, right? I was crazy invested in this beta. I tried a lot of units, a lot of different teams, and different builds and shells and so on. So, and I was one of the first in Inferno. I was also one of the best in Hell and so on, but only on AI, right? I didn't bother about manual play because I don't want to play manual, right? And my Hell 4 run was like around, I don't know, 1 minute 30 or something in Hell 4 on auto, but it was far from optimal. No Revelation, no Kenai or my Real Mocha and so on. So far from optimal, but I put a lot of my free time into this game, into this beta, and I have 90 hours, as you can see in the background here. This is all me playing this game, but like I said, I put a lot of hours into this, so I think I would say I have quite a good guess on what is good in Terramaton and Aurora and Doki Doki. And this won't be the last tier list. I will do another tier list on Aurora. I will do another tier list on Terramaton. I will do a build guide on how to build the units. I will also make a huge game plan guide on how to maneuver through the game on live release. I am streaming actually, because this game footage is from my stream on Twitch. So if you are interested, I will stream on the live release. I actually took vacation. Don't ask me why. I'm addicted. I don't know. And if you are interested, come in, check it out, and let's have a great time on Twitch. If you have any questions on how to build and so on, maybe like small questions, I can answer them in the comment section below. But like I said, the upcoming videos about team building and Terramaton and so on, they will come soon before the live release. That's about my tier list for Doki Doki. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, and see you next time.